Whilst qualifying may have been boring, the race for pole was not. We'll discuss.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. You're getting a nice extra insert this week. So we're going to take a look at the qualifying and the qualifying race.
To pole.
To pole. That happened on Saturday. Qualifying was a little iffy, wasn't it?
I have got very mixed feelings. As people already know, I'm not a huge fan of this concept. I will say I think part of it's worked better, but I will lead with the negatives, which is that the first part of qualifying, which sets the grid, is a complete bore fest. Like, it's rubbish. There is no jeopardy. You just watch 15 minutes of cars going around. I get the cars are obviously fueled up because of the park firm and then have to start the race to pole in the condition they finished qualifying in, apart from changes to tyres if they've been punctured, that kind of thing. So I kind of, the cars are heavier. I also got the impression that people weren't running it onto the ragged edge during qualifying because what's the point? You've got a race to make up the time.
It feels like a small revert back to what we used to have with just a 30-minute long qualifying session. People would circulate, try and get a clear track, best times and stuff like that. Now we have still got the split between the two sessions, 15 minutes each, so you've only actually got 10 or 11 cars on track at one time. With the size of the grid nowadays, it makes a car coming round even less, and when they're not having to be fully on it and every lap matter, I can see why there wasn't that much excitement in this first session. Yeah,
and the thing is as well is that I can't see how that improves throughout the season because I think, as we'll get to in the race in a minute, if today's race to pole race sprint thing challenge is anything to go by, there will be opportunities within that sprint race pole challenge session to move up the grid. So why would you run it on the ragged edge and potentially end up starting 20th when you can just sit 12th and be happy that you would have a chance in the race to make up positions? So I think we've set ourselves up for quite a dull first part of the session on the Saturday, and as this whole thing is built around trying to make it a better experience for fans, I wouldn't have enjoyed that at all. It would have been what is there to enjoy from that session?
There's also the thought that you want qualifying to be absolutely on the edge, lowest fuel, best setup, fastest, absolute pinnacle of the speed that they can get out of the car. Two ways they've ruined this is the fact that qualifying means nothing effectively now.
Agreed.
It just sets the grid for the qualifying to pole race, and that they're now fueled up because they have to carry the fuel for the two sessions. So there's no real need. You can build a good race car this year and be really quick. You don't have to have single lap pace anymore.
No, that is a very good point. That is a very good point indeed, actually, that, you're right. Why push for one lap pace when you can just go and sort it out in the race car spec? Yeah, that's an excellent point. I hadn't thought of that. In terms of actual action on the track for the first part, the first half of the qualifying session was slightly more interesting. We saw Rainford error, which saw him run wide for a lockup and put some grass for his radiator right at the end of the session, so it didn't mean anything. We saw the Mercedes and the Audis were both quick. That was very good for Plato. He might have got a mention or two on the coverage, but Plato Racing were quite happy. And Shedden didn't get much running and was disappointing overall. That is all I have to say for the first part.
Yeah, so Moffat finished fourth overall in that session, but could actually have been high up as second. Obviously, track limits still play a major part in these sessions, and people were having track times deleted. But that's certainly a positive start to the season for a car, again, that's brand new to the grid, but a team that's very well experienced now.
Yeah, so Ingram was fastest through that first session, which meant that his side of the draw would be on the odd sides of the grid for the sprint to race pole question mark thing that will happen later. And then you're going to keep coughing the entire...
Yeah, sorry. Little frog in the throat.
Absolutely. Qualifying to nothing happened apart from Sutton hit a tyre barrier twice and games of puncture.
Well, one thing I would note is that I missed sort of like half of the first session.
You didn't miss anything.
But in the second session, it took 7 minutes for a driver to actually set a relatively quick time.
That's great for the fans on a Saturday, Sam. This is what they come to see.
Yes, exactly.
If you like to see tyres being crossed in the pit lane, you are in good shape for this weekend.
I don't know whether it's just a format of the circuit that most cars had to have 2 warm-up laps before they then came in and crossed their tyres, and then you've got that extra out lap to then set a fastest lap. they're already four laps down before they're getting to a quick time.
Yeah, but as you said, that time is also at the end of the day effectively meaning you might as well just put all of the drivers' names in a bag and put it out.
A sealed bag.
Sealed bag, obviously.
Yeah. Morgan had a lap time deleted in the second session. He really struggled to get to grips with the car by the look of it, and had lap time deleted for overboosting and stuff like that, but did manage to salvage at the end of the session. I think finished 5th overall. Yeah,
also it was a tale of two halves in the Mercedes garage. Rowbottom looked really on it from the start, Morgan not so much, but we'll see how that ebbs and flows over the season. I mean, I have nothing else to say on qualifying apart from that I'm trying to, and I will be fair with the race to pole challenge sprint cup championship thing in a minute, because actually that was quite good, but I have some doubts if that'll be good throughout the season.
I had an idea.
What?
I might keep my own, and we had this last season.
No.
Alternative championship of just the qualifying race this season. Because
Okay.
I know all those points obviously get put into the main championship, but there isn't a championship to see who is quickest on a Saturday. I think I might just keep track of that this season.
If that's what you want. I'm not sure anybody else does, but if you want it, then...
Possibly the most exciting bit was the little bit of rain that we had between the two sessions.
Well, it's before the main sprint to pole qualifying.
Between the qualifying and the race to pole, we had camera shots of water on lenses, and we thought, hang on a minute, is the best thing going to happen here? And
no, it didn't. Bit of smart of rain, changed nothing. But what I will say is that we'll cover the sprint to pole race now. That was actually quite good. Now, I have genuine concerns about whether that's going to be good throughout the season, because I think, as we'll touch on in a minute, when it goes wrong, it can go so wrong that I think that might set the tone for the rest of the season, having seen already some of the perils of it. However, on a one-off viewing, this was okay. So we'll start with...
One thing I would say is that race drivers are always race drivers. When they get that lid down, helmet on, in the car, behind the wheel, they're pretty much always going to go for everything that they can, and we saw that in this race today.
However, Cook's interview afterwards basically said that I wasn't going to do anything risky when all the points are given out tomorrow. So, yeah, I mean, Ingram was possibly over... Well, there's no possibility. He was over his box at the start of the race. We saw the TOCA official down there taking photos of the car, and he was slapped with a 5-second penalty during the race for a false start, which I was always under the impression it was a drive-through for. It seems mad to me that being out of grid box is 5, but if you were to slightly jump the start, it is a drive-through, because both are effectively the same advantage. So that's a quirk of the rules, but they are the rules. He was quite a long way over as well, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, it was quite obvious. And I don't know if it made it more obvious, but Rowbottom, who was the position behind him on the grid, was giving very much a yard of space away by what it looked like. But
you could have fitted Ricky Collard in there.
An Ingram penalty at the start of the season is probably not what he wanted, but he certainly tried to claw it back throughout the race.
Could be worse, though, because the other title contender in Ash Sutton decided that he wasn't going to get bogged down with penalties affecting his season, and decided that he wanted to show everybody he was going to be very punchy and aggressive from the start. I do wonder, because at the end of the race we saw that the Hyundai had excellent overall race pace, whether Sutton felt he had to get ahead early. I will say, for the opening sprint race to pole of the season, this was very bolshy from Sutton throughout, and it ended up he was hoisted by his own petard, as they say.
Yeah, so like all four drivers at the front. So you had Ingram, Sutton, Camish, and Rowbottom were all looking very racy coming towards the end of that first lap. There was already early contact going up into McLean's between Ingram and Sutton, and things were getting a little bit spicy. And then over the line, actually, at the end of the first lap, Rowbottom actually led with a great move down the outside into the final chicane.
Very, very opportunistic move.
Yes, and I think Ash was then trying to make the most of Rowbottom being in Ingram's mirrors, and went for an inside lunge, shall we say, down into Redgate, and the gap got closed very quickly, which put...
Well, there was never a gap in the first place, if we're being brutally honest. He had to put a wheel on the grass to get into the gap.
Exactly. He'd already given Ingram a slight nudge and put a rear wheel onto the grass, which sent him spinning.
And as if that wasn't bad enough or good enough for Sutton, he decided, I can take out Camish here too, and managed to collect his teammate in the instant.
It was
as
a
well.
little reminiscent of sort of like that safety car restart at the end of last year at Donington, wasn't it?
I have always praised Sutton on this podcast for his aggression and the way he does things. I do not understand what this is all about. If, as I said to you, if this was the final sprint to pole challenge race cup event of the year at Brands Hatch and the title was on the line, I completely get it. For your opening weekend at Donington Park, I don't understand it at all. I just don't understand. Yeah, I get you want to get past him, and I get you want to put down your marker early about you're here and you're a serious contender to take the championship this year. We already know that. We all know that. You finished second on the road in the qualifying session. You missed out on pole by about 8,000th of a second or something daft.
Something like that.
Yeah, we know the pair of you are going to be really good. What are you doing? What are you doing?
I don't know whether it's that show of bravado to go, right, I'm here, I'm back this season, I'm ready to take the title back from you. But I agree, it's not the place to do it. Okay, do it in the final race of the weekend to go, right, I'm here, I'm about it for the season.
It's not even a 50-50 for me either. It's at best it's an 80-20, and that's being kind. So yeah, I will say Ingram was slightly fortunate that he didn't suffer too badly from it, because he was hit up the from behind a couple of times during the incident. He could have easily have been turned around on a broken toe link or anything along those lines, but he did well to control the car and he suffered no ill effects from it and keep the lead. But yeah, I think that might set the tone for drivers potentially being a little bit more careful in future sprint to pole challenge cup race events, because that is the ultimate that is the ultimate worst case scenario, is that you start at the back of the grid. And yeah, I think after that, I mean, I'll get onto the angle in a minute, but after that, things did settle down across the grid. I think that was perhaps a reminder of what can go wrong.
Yeah, it did push Camish down quite a way. It dropped him all the way down to 11th, which he then had to start fighting with drivers in that mid-pack, which we know can be dangerous as well. And consequently, Sutton was out the race, stranded in the gravel trap. Which
would have 100% been a safety car if we were racing on a Sunday. If that happens tomorrow, that is a safety car.
I know. Which I was just about to say. Sorry. They had a snatch vehicle come out to grab under double yellow flags.
And what I will say is that on one of the laps, cars were very, very close to each other for a under yellow flag condition.
Agreed.
And we talked about it on the preview where we'd explain what the flags mean, the fact that drivers don't respect them. That is a absolute example in my mind where you saw Robot was on the bumper of Ingram through that corner, and it just takes on colder tyres, because you've dropped off the pace through there or you start the race, it just takes a fraction of a second of a misjudgment and you are putting somebody heading towards the snatch vehicle.
Dare I say, and I'm going to relate this to real life now, you know those little chevrons that you get on the motorway where you're meant to keep that distance, because that's kind of your thinking time between that person braking in front and where you need to react. With racing, obviously speeds are much higher, thinking time a lot less. So when you're following that closely, especially when there is a marshal on track with a recovery vehicle or something like that, you need to be so much more careful.
Yeah,
so much
more careful. It looked as if to me that effectively the safety car just peeled in and they're backing up the field ready to try and get the hammer down. My feelings on this have been clear over the years. I've just about come around to the idea of certain things being done under double yellows, and it was close to the edge of the circuit, so it's not like Sutton had got himself into the barrier. No. It was basically just in the gravel, just as you go into the first corner. And as I say, it just takes the slightest error with the cars all at that proximity to cause something horrific.
If you haven't gone and watched this yet, do go back on YouTube, find the whole race and the qualifying event. I'm going to call it.
I wouldn't bother.
To have a look at the incidents that have happened. Then back to normal racing. Camish was trying to obviously fight back through. Had a nice dive bomb manoeuvre on Moffat down to I think it was Redgate. A really nice late move, clean move as well. But he wouldn't necessarily stay there. He was having a fair battle in that midfield, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was that was quite an interesting part of the sprint to pole qualifying event, because there was a fair bit of shuffling in the midfield. I thought Dexter Patterson had a good race. He did put a good move on Camish. Camish didn't like this and decided he was going to try and run him off the circuit, which both said was a little bit naughty. We didn't see what happened afterwards, but Camish did get shuffled back down, so I think Patterson may have had his revenge.
Possibly.
We'll see if that gets fought out in the steward's bus after the event. But yeah, I think that after that, the race pretty much settled down.
Yeah, Chilton on one of the laps looked like he was struggling and lost a couple of positions to Morgan and Rainford. Rainford actually came through quite nicely, made up 4 positions in total to finish 5th overall. But Ingram's late race pace is a real sign of what that car can do this season. The fact that he had to try and make up as much time as possible to then claw back that penalty 5 seconds means that he was going all out, and it's a real show of pace.
Absolutely. Then, so before we talk about generals, I'll just bring you what the final result was and what that means for the field on Sunday, tomorrow. So Rowbottom wins by
24
thousandths of a second. How Ingram nearly overturned that in the last lap is crazy and quite ominous for how the season might go.
Apparently, his last lap was about 1.5 seconds quicker than Rowbottom.
Yeah.
We didn't think it was going to be possible that he'd even come close to finishing on the podium second for qualifying in that position by the end of the race.
Kind of shows what a fast that penalty is as well. But that's it for another day. Ingram then finished second from Josh Cook. Good showing from him in the Toyota. Mikey Doble, 4th. Excellent effort by him. Rainford up to 5th. Then Chilton, Morgan, Moffat, Shedden and De Leon rounding out your top 10. Patterson, Taylor Smith, Collard, Camish and Smiley in the points paying positions. Then Dorlin, Selby, Osborne, Hamilton, Buxton making up the final places, with Sutton starting 21st following his skirmish. I will say that I thought that the Audis in particular were very impressive through all sessions today. They were quick in the first part of qualifying. They had good race pace. Mikey Doble 4th is a really good achievement in that car.
It very much looks like the pace that they were showing in testing is certainly going to be the pace that they're going to show certainly in the early stages of the season. I don't know whether it's going to be more of a Donington specific thing, but the fact that they went quick here as well as Brands kind of suggests that the car should be good everywhere.
3 cars in the top 11, could have easily been 3 in the top 10.
Yeah, whereas it might not be the same sort of case for Cataclean Plato Racing in the Mercedes. Rowbottom going on to say that okay, the big longer circuits the car will do a lot better at because it's the longest wheelbase on the grid, but they may struggle at circuits like Alton or Knock Hill.
Yeah, quite possibly. However, it is a first pole of the season for Plato Racing. It is historic because it's the first race to pole event, sprint championship event that has been won. And it is, of course, going to bear Jason Plato's name in some way, shape or form.
Yep.
I think the Mercedes does look strong. I do think it's looking stronger than I thought it would do for the first weekend, if I'm being brutally honest. There's a lot of Plato documentaries out and about in the minute, which we will watch and catch up on.
Despite the little struggles that Morgan was trying to have.
But he did finish 7th overall, so I mean, he has then put that firm in the top 10 for tomorrow. I mean, and if you'd offered 7th at the start of the day, okay, I'm not a race driver, and they'll tell you no, I want pole. However, I think that realistically, that would have been, if you'd said 7th at the start of the day, you'd have gone, yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take that. So, yeah, I think other than that, there's not really a great deal that has been revealed. I was a bit disappointed with Selby's pace finishing towards the back of the grid. Buxton had a dreadful session.
I was a little disappointed with restart as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Especially in the qualifying side of things, they didn't look like they had great one-lap pace, but as I've already said, it's really down to race pace this season. And Dorlin made up a few positions, but Smiley stayed relatively close to where he'd actually qualified.
But then a part of that, I wonder, is if you're at that part of the grid, how much do you really risk in terms of, risk and reward? I think once you've got to a certain point, you'll take that and work on the race tomorrow when there's variables of the tyres. And let's not forget as well, if you've got the setup wrong for the first part of qualifying, you can't change it for the second sprint to pole race event thing. So they are now free to make changes for tomorrow's racing as well, though. So it is important to consider that as well.
Yeah, we may well see some improvements from the Laser Tools boys who...
disappointing.
Low key.
Yeah, disappointing across both sessions, especially with Cook 6th and 3rd.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll see how races develop tomorrow, and we'll bring you a full review of all 3 races from Sunday.
Bye for now.